Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Daily BizLink. Stacie Mallen is back, and today we're focused on the conversation around gratitude. I couldn't think of anything better, especially this time of year as we're preparing for the holiday season. So, Stacie, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay.
Gratitude looks like a lot of different things for different people, but now I think there's this more heightened awareness about rather than staying in the space of negativity, focusing in on the positives. So, welcome your thoughts around, what that includes for you.
I saw this quote a long time ago, but I came across it again, and I think it's very relevant to right now, which is gratitude helps you see what's there instead of what isn't. And I think right now we could focus externally and get very organized around things we can't control. But it also brings to mind what are the traditions that we have in this upcoming, next couple of weeks from a holidays or the holiday season in its entirety. And what are the traditions that you may change this year? And one of the things that we've always tried to do is reflect gratitude in our household. But as we've talked about before, we're kind of coming together as a new family in my household this year. So it's an opportunity to sort of reflect with probably 5 teenagers around the table. Are they going to do, hey, it's Thanksgiving, what are you grateful for? And I think kids right now, it is hard to not get focused on what's being taken away. There's a lot of scuttle. Will school be back out after Thanksgiving? And I think that's creating a lot of nervousness. My son ordered his cap and gown for his senior year. We ordered it last night, right before the deadline, because I always am well in advance of what's happening. I was like, what's happening? How is that due? It's not till May. So I spent some time with him last night saying, we can continue to be organized but around what it's not going to be, which we don't know and don't have any control over. But we can also sit in gratitude for the fact that it kind of happened last year. So maybe they'll be better at it this year, regardless of what that looks like. Grateful for the fact that you get to have a senior year and there's a new norm. So I know in working through this with teenagers who have a propensity to focus on what's not working, how do you do it? You have smaller kiddos, so how do you do it in your home? Do you talk about gratitude?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky because they're very positive little kids and everything is so cool and fun and exciting right now. And therefore, the reason why you could probably hear them yelling in the background because they are super excited. But we do talk about our favorite part of the day. So at the end of the night, before we tuck them in, we have everybody say, what's your favorite part of the day? And that helps us to hone in on gratitude. So I don't think they quite understand or grasp gratitude yet, but they can say what their favorite part is and what made it fun.
Yeah, that's a great practice to start really early. I think I was remiss early on with my kids, and it just wasn't, they're 17 and 14. So 17 years ago, we weren't talking about gratitude like we are now. And I think the very first time I started talking about it was after reading something from Brene Brown, I want to believe, or maybe Daniel Laporte. So, in thinking about the next couple of weeks, some things that I've heard, and these are not my ideas, but I will share them for your audiences. One person mentioned Scott Peoples, who was on our podcast at one point, mentioned that he heard of a cool tradition where people have a white tablecloth and everybody signs that tablecloth because, especially this year, things are maybe going to look a little bit different. And maybe if you have kiddos at that table drawing on that white tablecloth, I thought that was a really cool idea to be really grateful for the people that are around the table and grateful that they're there and something that's reflective of that. So that's one thing I really heard. One thing that Blake and I talked about on our podcast is a new tradition of being grateful for the fact that we still have time left in the year. So one thing I think people do is they say, man, I haven't gotten on track yet. Here comes Thanksgiving and the mashed potatoes. And then I'm just going to totally derail myself all the way through the first year. I'll just wait to have a goal. And so one thing that I started doing a couple years ago is setting a goal right before Thanksgiving to get me through the end of the year and into the first. And so I have a goal to run the 10K for the rock and roll run. I'm not going to do the marathon because let's be realistic, that is not going to happen in the next 6 to 8 weeks. But I set a goal for myself of just preparing for a 10K. And I think it's nice right now, maybe to have a tradition and maybe to talk about it Thanksgiving. Hey, you have 5 weeks left in this year. Instead of saying, I'm going to wait to set goals until January 1st, what are some goals you can set for yourself over the next 5 weeks? And again, especially after this year, let's be honest, I don't think anybody was on track with their goals from, I don't know, probably February all the way to maybe even present. So it might be a good practice to set some goals early this year and roll into 1/1 with some momentum versus feeling like you're behind. Is there any tradition you guys have for Thanksgiving that I know, like, as you're like me, kind of formulating a new normal with your new family? Is there anything that you do every single year?
This year will look so much different for us. So we're kind of in that space now where we're trying to figure out what our new tradition will be. We won't have the kids this year. We won't have my parents at the dinner table. My sister moved to Denver, and my extended family is in Wisconsin and in DC. So it will look and feel a little bit different, not necessarily a bad thing. And we have tons to be grateful for. But yeah, I actually think this is a great exercise, even for me, to think through what will the new traditions look and feel like.
Yeah, and I think it's natural for people like you and I that are in that state of newness. But I think for everybody, what's a new tradition you could create this year? And what is a new tradition you could create around gratitude? And I think instead of, again, not that there's anything wrong with going around the Thanksgiving table and talking about what you're grateful for. That's what we used to do when I was a kid. But how can you integrate gratitude, I think, more completely in your move forward? So I think it's a great conversation, and I think it's a great conversation to everybody to take a step back, even if their Thanksgiving looks exactly like it has historically looked, which I don't know anybody yet. I haven't met anybody that it's exactly the same. So I think that's probably for the most part off the table. But I think that it's a good opportunity to talk about gratitude.
Well, all these ideas and concepts shared today, I think, are a great challenge for all of us. So, over the course of the next 5 weeks before the end of the year hits, what are we going to focus on? What are some of our goals and objectives to finish the year strong? And what are we going to try and accomplish as we hit Q1 in 2021? In the meantime, stay focused on gratitude and being thankful for what we do have rather than focusing on the negative and all those other aspects that we can't control. But I appreciate you sharing some great insight and knowledge on this space, Stacie. So thanks again.
Thanks, Lindsay. You guys have a great holiday. If we don't talk to you next Tuesday, we may not. So have a great holiday.
Thanks, you too.